social media, if you want to be on all of the places, it's a best practice to have your voice be represented in those places, but also the content is representative for that place. People go to Instagram with an expectation. They go to YouTube with an expectation. They open up your audio podcast with an expectation of a more immersive experience. So there's different ways, and there's different ways that you need to be putting your information in the post. And so you can't just take something that somebody gives you and just, that's the same content that goes into TikTok, into Instagram, into YouTube.
Welcome to Audio Branding, the hidden gem of marketing. Sound plays a more important role in human behavior and our decision-making than you may realize. In this podcast, I'll help you understand the art and science of sound so you can better influence others in business and your life. I'm your host, Jodi Krangle. Let's delve a little deeper. Here's the second part of our Clubhouse discussion about sound in social media. I'm going to open up the discussion to people in the audience. If you'd like to raise your hand and be brought up on stage to ask your question, feel free to do that. And we also can answer your questions from the room chat. So if you want to put anything in there, we're happy to answer them, just speak them out for you instead of you coming up if you are in a place where you can't do that, or, you're just a little shy, which is entirely valid as well. Sarah, did you have something that you wanted to say?
Something that they're talking about made me think of one of the biggest annoyances I find with AI content. When we're talking about the way that AI will pronounce words and everything, that's one thing, but also the word choice. I don't know about anyone else, but I can immediately pick out something written by AI just from the words that they choose.
Oh, yeah.
Because I have never in my life said the word delve, but ChatGPT wants me to delve into every topic. So there are those key words that you just, this person has never said that word before. That has to be AI.
Yeah, I actually say that in my intro, but that was not AI generated. That was just me being an English major.
That's because you're a professional, Jodi. But the vast majority of us out here, we don't delve
us
into
peasants don't say. Us peasants do not say delve. We dive.
I love it. Yeah, I'm going to invite.
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say, a funny thing that comes to mind from what Larry's co-host just said was, when I'm looking for a headline, let's say for an article or something, and I ask ChatGPT, I'll upload the article, I'll say, can you generate a few options? And it will always start with unlocking the secrets of, or unlock. And the first time it gave me an unlocking, I was like, oh, what a cool way to say that. But I can't name every video or every article unlocking this. So there's certain things that seem to repeat a lot in what the suggestions are. So you still have to you bring your own sort of skills and ideas and editing to the content that AI tools generate.
Yeah. There needs to be oversight, definitely. Yeah. John, welcome to the stage. Hey.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to defend AI very quickly.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'll tell you how I use it. Number one, I do have a show called True Crime Fighters that is entirely generated by AI, including voice cloning from 11 Labs. It's my voice. And I know people that have lost the ability to speak, and what experimenting is doing it in different languages, which has been very, very much a struggle. The one caveat I would give is make sure you do your intro using the same AI tools. Otherwise, it becomes a train wreck. And the reality is it does far better than most podcasts. It does. It really does. But in the show notes, say it's entirely generated by AI. Secondly, when it comes to the writing, like ChatGPT, which I'm doing right now, a news article, I'm not a writer, but I write the show notes, and then I put it in there and say, rewrite this. And I remove words like delve and explore and change some other words, so it has more of my sound to it. But then I'll take the same information, I'll rewrite it as a news article and post it in other places. But the thing is, I create the content first, and I don't rely on ChatGPT to create the content. That's the difference for me. Does it write exactly the way I would? No. I would say this too, and I don't have anything to back it on yet, science-wise or stats-wise. It does a far better job of keywords in written form than I could ever do manually. For SEO, I think it's a win-win.
So do you tell it to give you SEO keywords in your
No, I
copy?
do I write everything first, and I come up with keywords, and I use Uber Suggest. And then I'll start with rewrite with these keywords, these 20 keywords, and I'll paste in everything I have. And that's where the information comes.
I see. Yeah. Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, that's super smart, John. I love the fact that you're doing that. And, there's a way through persona modeling that you can make it sound even more like you. And that's one of the things that I'll be talking about at the Podfest AI Summit in the coming weeks is persona modeling within ChatGPT. And just to piggyback on what you're doing, my book, Under the Red Hat, just came out. I don't know, it's probably been 2 months now, maybe going on 3. And the vast majority of that book was written with AI. But I also, page 2, there's a disclaimer for the book itself. And I let everybody know that it's a fusion of my personal insights and professional anecdotes and advanced AI technology. And I did it to demonstrate the power of AI and explore AI and personal branding and to take that new approach like you're doing right there. And I think the exercise that you're going through is what we as content creators need to do so that we understand these tools and we understand how these tools can complement what we're doing. Again, I stress that these aren't here to replace, but they can definitely help us elevate. I mean, just the fact that I have a book has already landed me speaking gigs. And what did I do? I spent, a couple of weeks writing this book and designing every aspect of the book, except for I did write chapter 3 all by myself, and I'm quite proud of that.
Good
but
for
at
you.
the same time, it's gone a long ways to simply reinforce what we can do with these tools. And I applaud you for having that podcast. What was the name of it again, John?
It's called True Crime Fighters. It's the secondary, and it only works for narrative style podcasts, where my main show, the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, which is now on 111 stations, and as a podcast is doing very well. It's a conversation. It would never work because it's multiple voices.
Sure.
But for a solo one, it works fine.
Awesome. I'll definitely be checking that out. I want to hear what it sounds like.
I want to jump on that too, as well, something
Sure.
that Larry just said. And as his co-host, I was part of, I kind of saw that process from start to finish. What AI wrote versus what you wrote, you focused on the actual storytelling. AI wrote more of the content, and you went in and put in your personal stories. So I think that's kind of the important thing to remember there, is that it's still not able to replace the personal storytelling piece of it. And if Larry's going to plug his book, Open This Book comes out April 25th. I'll plug mine too.
Go ahead.
But when I was writing mine, my publisher used AI to write the description of the book. And it, without having context, it just took what the content of the book was and wrote the description, and it was completely wrong. It focused on the wrong pieces, and it was just, this is not recognizable as my book. So where we have to stay away from AI is in things like those personal stories, but also in things that require that level of context. I think Larry says that it's a kindergartner that knows everything but has zero context for any of it. And that's kind of how we have to remember it.
Yeah, good point, Sarah. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, kudos there, John. I love the concept and what you're doing, and I think there's a couple things I want to touch on. I think everyone pretty much agrees here that using AI is something that we need to do, and I look at it more of like assistive intelligence or administrative intelligence, right? You're not rubber stamping something and just doing it. You're involving it. You're adding John Wiley, as the human element to make sure that it's representative. You're not rubber stamping it. Like I've seen press releases with the regenerate comment at the bottom, and it's like, really, you just copied that from ChatGPT and pasted it in. And so I love that. And also I think it's key that you have the responsibility of saying, "Hey, listen, this is generated from AI," so you're clear with everybody. So there's no loss of trust for your listeners. And if they enjoy it, they enjoy it. If they hear you miss a word or something that AI mispronounces or whatever, you've said, "Hey, listen, this is AI generated, and you've enjoyed it thus far." So I think that taking that sort of responsibility and consideration for your audience is key as well.
Yeah, I think it's very important that we make sure the audience is aware when they're viewing or hearing or experiencing something that was generated, because I think we're starting to be able to tell. I think everyone on this panel will agree right now that there are certain things that AI does that makes it very easy in some cases to see what's going on. But we just need to make sure that as this technology gets better, that we are not misleading people. And I think that's really, really important. I also think that one of the things that we need to guard against when it comes to this whole AI thing is having it do the creativity for us. And I've seen many memes on social media about this. I'm sure all of you have. But I would rather that AI do the grunt work than the creativity. That's what I want to be left alone to do myself. That's human. That's humanity. We want to create. Do I need AI to do that for me entirely? Well, I don't want to be the one doing the grunt work while it does the creativity. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm thinking that we need to make sure we're heading in the right direction. Do you want to sound your absolute best when you're being interviewed on a podcast or when you're hosting your own show? I have a podcast episode and free downloadable worksheet called Sounding Your Best as a Podcast Guest off of the audiobrandingpodcast.com main page. Just click on the little square graphic to the left of the player displaying my podcast trailer. It gives you some comprehensive suggestions for where to start or for improving the sound you already have, including the type of microphones to consider and why, ideas for soundproofing your recording environment, and suggestions on how to get the best sound when you're being remotely recorded on services like Riverside FM or Squadcast. Don't let bad audio quality hold you back from being the best podcast guest or host you can be. And of course, if you happen to need voiceover for your intro and outro, feel free to get in touch. I'm happy to help. And now, back to the podcast.
I think everybody here, and pretty much anybody who's competitive in this space, their biggest competitive advantage is themselves. That's what, when I listen to Chris, it's Chris and his personality. When I listen to Larry and his co-host, same thing. When you listen to Jodi voiceover, there's a personality there. There's talent there that can't be replaced. But for things like show notes and video titles and things like that, if you can outsource those to ChatGPT or other AI tools to at least get a first draft quickly, nobody goes, the reason why I love watching Chris's show is because the show notes are just, the best in the business, right? You enjoy watching the show for Chris's knowledge, his personality, the graphics, and so forth. That is much tougher to outsource, right? That's what he's competing on and why his content, is so strong on shows like Dealcasters. And that's the thing that, don't outsource what you bring that makes you different, that makes you better, that makes you have that connection with your audience. But everything else that we have to do as part of putting the package of a podcast or a live stream show or YouTube video together, and there's a lot of things. And really, if AI can get to the point where it gives you kind of industry standard level competence on those things, then yes, offload as much as possible so you can spend more time doing what makes you good at what you do, right? Doing what makes you have that relationship with the audience and why they come back for you. And I can guarantee it's not for the show notes or the newsletter content or the blog post. and maybe a little bit, or the links. It's you as the host, the co-host, the podcaster, the video creator. That's what people are coming back for.
Yeah, the personality. Yeah. Go ahead, Sarah.
One of the first things that I learned when I went into the podcasting world was you need to record for people and write for robots. So I think it's really key. Something that was said earlier was that ChatGPT is way better at those keywords, things like that, where there's not the need for storytelling, for personality and all of that. Yes, ChatGPT is going to be great for that. Use AI because that's how you're going to use it as like to its highest ability. So with things like show notes, no one is reading them except for Google. So if you can use an AI tool to insert as much keyword rich content into it as possible, that's great. But then use the content to actually show yourself.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot to unpack in all of this, and I'm sure that there are ways that AI makes our lives easier, and we can definitely use that because there's, as Ross was saying, there's a lot that goes into making a podcast: video, audio, show notes, descriptions, keywords, all of this stuff. I will say that I actually still employ a actual human being to write my show notes, although he uses AI to sort of get some glimmers of ideas and keywords and things like that, and some titles for sections. That's helpful for that. But I do like having an actual human being going through all of it and making sure that it actually represents the show that I put out. Because like you were saying before, also, you know, for the description of your book, for instance, Sarah, sometimes, you know, the AI just doesn't get it right. And you definitely want that human oversight just to make sure that it's not wrong. Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all heard the story of the lawyer from New York that actually did his case briefing and turned it into the judge using ChatGPT and did not read the output from ChatGPT. Yeah. And while he did not get disbarred, he probably still doesn't have a job today because, I mean, it was national news. And while he's the biggest case, there's several cases out there that we've seen in higher education, in the legal space, and a variety of other spaces as well. So this goes back to reinforcing the point that these are tools. They're here to help, but they're definitely not here to replace. And it's great that you're having an actual human look that over. And it's the same thing when I wrote my book. I had to read every chapter. I mean, to make sure.
I would hope so.
That it did sound like me, and that Delve wasn't in there. That was pretty critical to me.
I found one Delve in my author proof and almost canceled my launch. I left a Delve.
But we have to. I mean, that's just responsible content creation.
Yeah, definitely. If anyone has any more questions, you're welcome to raise your hand and join us up here on stage. We would love to answer any questions or hear the comments that you have on any of this. We are talking about sound in social media, and AI is at this point a big part of that. So we're having a discussion about all of it. But yeah, I do myself use AI for some of the forms that I have to fill out on occasion. I don't know if any of you have come across this, but especially if you're going to be a guest on another podcast and they give you like 150 characters for your bio, and your bio is way longer than that, I'll go into ChatGPT and I'll say, make this into 150 characters and have it spit out something that approximates what I have. And I didn't have to spend an hour and a half rewriting that thing, which makes me very happy. So I don't know if there are other uses that you've all found for it, but yeah, sound. I'm not all that impressed with sound as far as AI is concerned just yet. But I agree with you, Larry, that it is coming. Definitely, it's coming.
Just a quick story, Jodi, about
sure.
Using AI's voice detection and its understanding of transcripts and so forth. I was using a tool that would identify who the speaker was, and then it was programmed to give it a summary of the show in which we had a whole bunch of guests on the show. and you do the voice open for my show. You do the intro. Your voice is on that. And so I asked for a summary with some, 5 takeaways and, a call to action or something for a newsletter. And somewhere in the summary, it said, Jodi Krangle left after the beginning of the episode.
I remember that. Yeah.
That's what the voiceover artist usually does. But where did it come up with that? I didn't ask for anything like that.
Well,
so you really do have to be, you really do have to be careful. But I think, and I'm never going to be at Larry's level of expertise with the tools or be able to put that kind of time into it. But I do think it's important to play with these tools because at some point they're going to do something better or quicker or just in order to keep our jobs and our businesses getting on, knowing how to use them and getting on the input or output side of what they do may be more valuable than being able to do that task yourself. And it's not going to be every aspect of it, but there'll definitely be some aspects of what we do that you just will need to offload it or use the AI tools for it. And the people who are at least competent in that, they can adapt as demands and work expectations.
Sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense for us. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I'd like to delve into this social media thing. So I think another way that a lot of us, and we're talking about social media, and a lot of us are podcasters, live streamers, and social media, if you want to be on all of the places, it's a best practice to have your voice be represented in those places, but also the content is representative for that place. People go to Instagram with an expectation. They go to YouTube with an expectation. They open up your audio podcast with an expectation of a more immersive experience. So there's different ways, and there's different ways that you need to be putting your information in the post. And so you can't just take something that somebody gives you and just, that's the same content that goes into TikTok, into Instagram, into YouTube, into all of these, Pinterest, whatever. And so, a great way to do it is to either, use ChatGPT to do this and create something that is for your Instagram, that's modeled after your Instagram, or that's modeled after your YouTube channel, because these may be the same audiences, but their expectation is a different type of content. So there's no reason, if, there are super fans of Jodi Krangle and audio branding, but if she's creating the same content in 17 different places, why would they follow you on all 17 different places? And so what ChatGPT and what, programs like Swell AI and Cast Magic and Capshow and all of these places allow you to do is to take that content, that long form content, and say, give me 5 different Instagram posts based on this, and so it'll spit out a bunch of stuff that's a good framework for you to look at. And for me, I got to pull out all the stupid emojis of the microphones and the fire and the rockets out of there, because I'm getting all that junk, which is a big red flag for this was generated somehow. But it's a good start for me, instead of a blank sheet of paper or me opening my phone and trying to thumb hammer some stupid TikTok thing. I have a bunch of stuff that actually is in my voice that's appropriate for that platform, and you're actually reaching the same people that might be following you on other platforms, but also a new potential fan that is expecting content like that.
Really interesting, yeah. Special thanks to Marissa Callie for her very generously buying me a coffee on my Buy Me a Coffee page. Marissa is a virtual event producer and event planner in Tennessee. And if you happen to need that kind of service, you can reach out to her on Instagram or X at #Marissa, or on her website at marissa-cali.com. And that's spelled marisa-cali.com. Thanks again, Marissa. I really appreciate your support. I'm inviting Chris up on stage. Did you have something you wanted to say, Chris?
Great name, Chris. Great name.
Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. Anytime I see Chris, I have to speak.
Go for it. Did you have a question or a comment about this topic?
Most definitely. I'm looking for any shortcut I can find to help me maintain social media projects for myself and for the internship I'm involved in at college. So I was wondering, what is the cost of Swell and all these other chat GPTQMZYs or whatever? What's the cost?
Chris, do you know? Ross, Larry, Sarah, do you guys use any particular, and do you know the costs?
We use all of them.
Okay.
And they range in price. I mean, ChatGPT is my world. That's where I live most of the time. And I think it's $20 a month for GPT-4 for access to all the functionality there in ChatGPT with the persona modeling and access to DALL-E and access to all the custom GPTs that are out there that'll do all these different functions for you. And as far as the other platforms, we do use Cast Magic for podcast production. But Sarah's the number queen. I couldn't begin to tell you how much that costs us.
That one starts at $23 a month for their lowest tier.
Yeah, it's going to vary anywhere from 20 to $50 for a solo podcaster a month for these services. I love Swell because it allows me to do chain prompts within it. So if I plop some content in there, and it's a token kind of pricing model. So you get like 20 shows or 20 opportunities to plop your content in there. So if you've got like 10-minute clips, it can add up pretty quickly before you're out of tokens for the month. And it's $30, but I love it because I plop my content in there and I can do chain prompts, which will detect the voice, the vibe of the show, and identify speakers, gives you timestamps, gives you quotes, all kinds of stuff that you might be able to use. It's like maybe a quote and a nice little image is good for Instagram, for instance. And you could do all your social media and chain prompts within that. So I love that. But to Larry's point, like if I got to choose one out of all these, it's ChatGPT, because it is a Swiss Army knife that allows you to really, focus on, one thing. If you need to focus on one thing and one type of voice, it just takes a lot more, figuring out how to do the prompts as opposed to a program like Swell AI or Cast Magic, which I also have, which gives you different types of things. Sometimes I use like a hodgepodge framework of all three of them, just to kind of get the best of what I can get from these things. But I would personally, budget for ChatGPT. And then if it's specific to a podcast, personally, I love Swell AI, but it is it takes a while to get used to how to use it. So Cast Magic, which I believe is still on AppSumo, or maybe not. That's where I got a lifetime thing with Cast Magic on AppSumo. So I'd start there.
Yeah. AppSumo is a really good place to check for a lot of this kind of stuff, because they do have like lifetime memberships there for very little dollars, considering that you would be usually paying a license fee. So definitely something to look at there. But yeah, thank you, Chris and Larry and Sarah. And Ross as well for all of your wonderful advice here. We are coming up on a minute before we're about to end. So if anyone has any further questions, please do raise your hand. We can get one more question in. Go ahead, Chris. You have another one?
Yeah, very quickly. Do you think this would help improve my marriage? ChatGPT, I could record my wife and then find out what she's really saying. Thank you.
Bro, you totally can.
Somehow,
for sure. You can have ChatGPT.
Is that how you use it, Larry?
Well, we won't go into that, but it can definitely help you write poems and happy anniversary sonnets. And I mean, it can make you sound and feel like you are just the cat daddy. So yeah, most definitely can help you in all your relationships.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's quite a note to end on. Okay.
And congratulations on the new book, Sarah, and Larry on your book as well, and both Ross and Chris on your podcasts and video live streams and everything that's going on, because wow. Everyone on this stage is a powerhouse, really, and I'm so glad that you decided to join me today. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And yeah, we'll do this again sometime. I look forward to doing that. And thanks again. Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, John
Jodi.
and Chris,
Thank you for
being
having
here
us.
as well.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everybody. We'll
Okay.
see you soon.
Take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Well, that's the end of this episode. Thanks for listening. And if you like what you heard, why not tell a friend about this podcast? It's available in all the usual locations. Until next time.